No, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
I think Kirk took three sacks today. I mean, were there times where he was just holding on to the ball too long? He didn't really look too comfortable in those moments.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look at it. Really the only time I thought he held it too long was we were backed up on the 1 yard line at one time, maybe. They did a good job on defense. I assume guys were covered. They played a lot of man-to-man, so we'll see.
God.
He changed his tune on that because at halftime he told Jen Hale,
Or was Jen Hale lying?
Sideline reporter for Fox, that his biggest problem with the first half offensive struggles were the fact that Kirk was hanging onto the ball too long.
Yeah,
and I think
true.
that's why Courtney asked the question, because clearly if he had said it at halftime, you'd expect he'd say it again. And
I
he
love
sort
that
of
question.
backed off that big time.
Yeah. I love Courtney there, just poking the bear, trying to get him to rip Cousins. He wouldn't take the bait.
Bottom line.
This is Purple Daily, a very therapeutic episode of Ventline yesterday that went like an hour and 40-some minutes. So if you haven't checked that out yet, Purple Daily Podcast, ScoreNorth.com, or the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone who clicked the subscribe button on that yesterday. Saw a nice little jump there thanks to the Vikings' disaster performance. But this is Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company, Phil Mackey, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. That's our mission statement on this show. They did not get closer to that yesterday. Thanks to those of you who are watching on a TCL TV. TCL is a big supporter of us here at Purple Daily, and they have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. When the Vikings win, it's a pie chart of praise. They haven't won a game yet, though, preseason included and regular season. And when they lose, it's the pie chart of blame, boys.
Now on Mackey and Judd,
This chart makes it as clear as I can to you.
the pie chart of blame.
You want to blame somebody?
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Judd Zulgad, Chef Judd Zulgad, the oven is warmed up. Actually, I think the oven has been cooking your pie.
Oh, it's been
Now you're
preheated.
taking your pie out of the oven. Lead us off.
Oh, first of all, the aroma. My pie is so good. Yeah, let's get
Rock
that
knows how you
aroma
feel about
going.
pie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and you know what? There's three of us, but I'm going to divvy up my pie into 5 slices. 5 slices of pie.
Okay.
I'll start
I
with
would have
small.
set the over-under at probably 5.5, and I might have
Yeah.
taken the over, so this is a little surprising.
No, it's only 5, and I'll start with just a small piece. This piece is going to the kids' table at Thanksgiving, okay? Mm-hmm. Just a 5% piece of pie. It's going to go to Kirk Cousins. Dude, when you don't have time to throw and you've got opportunities to throw your receivers open, you have to do so. You can't be missing on passes. We saw that about 4 times. We saw one that was woefully short. Reminded me of McNabb to Shanko back in the day, a pass that sort of skipped. If you have opportunities to complete passes on a day like this, you have to complete them. So, I get if you get hit and you get sacked, or if you have to decide to throw the ball away, I understand that. But there were definite passes that where the throw was behind Justin Jefferson or Thielen. That can't happen. 5% to Kirk. So I'm not going to give it all. I'm just giving him a kid slice. 10%.
Can't believe you're blaming a guy that threw for 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions.
He is the
350 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and you're blaming Kirk Cousins for the loss.
He is going into my box score Hall of Fame. He is in my box score Hall of Fame. He is a Hall of Fame quarterback in the box score. On paper,
yeah,
he's a Hall of Famer.
We should just give Kirk wins like, all right, if you throw for 330. Sorry, we were dealing with this on Mackey and Judd too. I'm going to cut out for 2 seconds, 6 times, because the football NSA is monitoring my negativity levels today.
Yep,
So,
yep. You just went
sorry
after
for
Kirk.
any technical issues throughout this recording.
All right. 10% chunk of my pie is going to go to new addition cornerback Bashad Breeland, who, yes, got hurt, hurt his shoulder, but had a miserable day that included giving up a 50-yard touchdown pass right before the half to Jamar Chase, the former LSU teammate of Justin Jefferson. Also took a 26-yard pass interference to put the ball at the Vikings 3 and set up the T. Higgins touchdown earlier in the second quarter from Joe Burrow. In short, Bashaud Breeland had to be signed because Cam Dantzler wasn't trusted. And now Cam Dantzler was inactive for this game. And Bashaud Breeland looked like a guy who, if you could have replaced him, would have been replaced. But Chris Boyd's his backup. And when Chris Boyd came in, Joe Burrow was like, oh, man. So that's 10%.
Mm-hmm.
10% goes to the Vikings run defense, which gave up 149 yards after being rebuilt. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did you guys hear the name of Dalvin Tomlinson?
No.
Michael Pierce,
he didn't do a whole
2
lot.
sacks, definitely heard his name. I don't think I heard the name of Dalvin Tomlinson, who is the new 3 technique alongside Pierce. Like, the run stopping was supposed to be the big thing now, right? We're going to stop the run. 10% to a defense. I'm sorry, guys. 149 ain't stopping the run. 25% goes to the offensive line. I have 8 of the Vikings' 16 penalties, both accepted and declined, were called on the offensive line. 2 on Bradbury, 2 on Rashad Hill, 2 on Udo, 1 on Cleveland, and 1 on Brian O'Neill, who obviously is the best player on that line. But that is a pathetic, brutal day. And when you're that undisciplined and that unprepared and you're having false start problems, and I don't care about the noise. It was Cincinnati. Give me a break. 25% offensive line. Do better. Do something. 50% goes to the guys who orchestrated this whole thing. Hand in hand. Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer. Your team wasn't prepared to play. Your lack of depth at cornerback, obvious. Your lack of depth in the offensive line. I mean, you drafted Garrett Bradbury in the first round of the 2019 draft, and he can't play in this league. There is enough here that I can squarely... And, okay, Kirk. You extended Kirk. Like, Kirk would be gone now. You could have said, you know what, it didn't work out. But in your haste to free up salary cap space, you gave him more guarantees, and now he's signed through 2023. We could go through this whole thing and find places where Zimmer and Spielman are directly to blame. This is their baby, and it looked unprepared. All of the warts that we feared in training camp basically came true yesterday. So 50% to the GM and coach, 25% to the offensive line, 10% to the run defense, 10% to cornerback Bashaud Breeland, and 5% to Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook gets none because I don't think he fumbled, and that would be the ding against him. But I think he got screwed.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Ooh, Judd Zulgad just slinging. Oh, and look at that. Go ahead, Dex.
508. 508 for Judd
That's not bad.
Zulgad in the pie
dude.
chart.
I
The
think
only
it was
reason
10-something at
the
one
only
time,
reason
right?
I timed this is because, yes, one of our YouTube commenters in the pace of play comments
He's right.
of the pie chart of blame.
I sped
You
it
went
up.
like 13 minutes on a preseason pie
know.
chart. And in week 1, you only go 5.
You know what?
Bravo.
Because I watched the film.
Yes.
I watched the
better.
film,
Yes.
and I improved myself. Easily correctable. Take that,
Amazing.
Christian Ponder.
I think it was time that Judd's pie chart was like 12 or 13 minutes, and Declan and I were both under
Like
2
90
minutes.
seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a preseason game. No, it was my fault.
Hey.
Oh, it's hilarious. All right.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
All right, so I'm gonna fly through
right.
here and see if I can beat Judd's time. But then I do
You're
have
on
a
the clock.
I have a post-amble
Okay.
postscript to my pie chart.
Clock's ticking.
So
It's fine.
5 slices of pie. 15% to Mike Zimmer's revamped run defense that Judd brought up. Dalvin Tomlinson. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson instead of retaining a Riley Reif, who could have played left tackle and not taken a bajillion holding penalties in that game yesterday, right? So Zimmer obsessed and lost sleep for 8 straight months all offseason about the run defense, so much so that they spent every cent, basically, of available free agent money on defensive players. They got Michael Pierce back. They gave up 150 yards on the ground. So 15% to Mike Zimmer's revamped run defense. Another 15% to Mike Zimmer's revamped pass defense. You guys already talked about Bashaud Breeland. Mike Hughes, by the way, had the game-sealing interception
Saw that.
for the Chiefs yesterday.
Good for him.
Joe
awesome.
Burrow averaged 10 yards per attempt in that game. 10 yards per attempt. A good yards per attempt on the season for like the MVP candidates is like 8 or 9. And he averaged 10 in that game yesterday. All right, 30% of my pie chart of blame goes to poor leadership on offense in general, okay? So the Vikings come out with 3 false start penalties on the first 5 snaps yesterday. Why is that happening? Why is there confusion over snap counts, over crowd noise, over play calls? And like, why is there that much confusion coming? This is scripted, and they're doing it. And by the way, the 6th play was a holding call, so 4 penalties on the first 6 snaps. It just, Mike Zimmer doesn't want to lead the offense, so he outsources it. Clint Kubiak is 34 years old. That dude was the wide receivers coach at Kansas University, one of the worst Power 5 schools in college football history. I'm not saying he's not a qualified NFL coach, but is he really a true offensive guru and leader? And Kirk Cousins just floats above all responsibility, apparently, ever. Whenever they lose, it's never his fault, or he never bears any responsibility, unless he throws 3 blatant interceptions. Only then will, okay, I guess you guys can blame Cousins now. 25% of my pie chart of blame to everyone who is involved in the drafting and development of Garrett Bradbury. Spielman for drafting him, the scouts for identifying him, Zimmer's coaching staff for being apparently completely incapable of developing him, and Bradbury himself for still being this bad. He led the Vikings in both pressures allowed yesterday, 4, and was flagged for 2 penalties. So, Garrett Bradbury, I think it's time for Judd's guy Mason Cole to step in and be the starting center as soon as next week. And then 15% to the video replay refs botching the call on Dalvin Cook's fumble. It does deserve note. If they call that right, the Vikings probably win. So many things led to the Vikings being in that situation to begin with, but them botching that call ultimately stuck the dagger in the Vikings. So 15% video replay refs, 25% the people involved with drafting and developing Garrett Bradbury, 30% poor leadership on offense, 15% to Mike Zimmer's revamped pass defense, and 15% to Mike Zimmer's revamped run.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
How did
336.
Oh, wow. Ran the
Masterful.
4-minute offense, what you ran.
You know what, though?
The 4-minute offense.
Well, that's great because it gives me an extra, minute and a half to tell you guys about a couple things. Number one, the Minnesota Lottery and Vikings scratch game tickets, okay? There are a couple great games that you should get your paws on, even if you're mad at the Vikings right now. There's a $5 game that can win you up to $100,000, a $2 skull game that can win you up to $15,000. You can get Vikings tickets as well if you want to just go and throw fruit and vegetables at them for being terrible. Say I'm into Vikings scratch games from the Minnesota Lottery. Must be 18 or older to play.
I got a couple bananas. I got some tomatoes. Don't worry about them.
Here's another thing,
taking them in the stadium.
If it gets to the point where they keep playing like this, you're going to want to get outside and do some stuff on Sundays, right? And that's where Moon Motorsports comes in Monticello.
Till Ventline comes on.
Yeah, then join us.
Then get your butt inside and join us.
So we're talking about the most exciting power sports selection in the region with 10 top-name brands like Honda, Polaris, Yamaha, ATVs, side-by-sides, motorcycles, snowmobiles. This place is a mecca if you like to ride fun, powerful vehicles. 50 years in business, family owned and operated. You can check them out at moonmotorsports.com or just stop by in Monticello.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Declan, your pie chart.
All right, my pie chart of blame. Judd and I are almost in locksteps in our construction of this pie. First off, 10% yes to the run defense. You spent all this money and all this time after watching that debacle on Christmas Day in New Orleans to say never again will that happen to my defense, Mike Zimmer. So Rick, go out and spend with Dalvin Tomlinson. Bring in Michael Pierce back, or Michael Pierce ops back in. You bring in Sheldon Richardson. You're going to swallow up this defensive line to be it back to a mini Williams wall, if you will. And nope. Joe Mixon absolutely gashed you for $130 yesterday. 10% of that blame on that run defense. 10% also to Bashaud Breeland for an absolute atrocious performance. This dude gets signed late. He has this weird contract negotiation where he wants a couple more bucks. Now all of a sudden he's the starting cornerback and he's getting burned in week 1 and his ego is hurt on the side in the sidelines after getting gashed on a touchdown play. He also had a defensive penalty against him. Bad, horrible performance for Bashaud Breeland. I would actually say of all the defensive players, his was probably the most embarrassing. So 10% of the blame there.
I love that you're putting the famous Xavier Rhodes injury thing on Bashaud Breeland. Xavier Rhodes was famous once a game for.
Yes, he was.
Oh my God, I broke my leg. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh, my
hamstring.
back. Oh,
my
no.
hamstring tore off the bone. Oh wait,
Nope,
no, it didn't.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good.
He's a rallier. I get it. I like to rally too. But yeah, at the same time,
Bashaud Breeland had a bad game. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
You're right.
No excuses for that.
Yeah.
20% to play calling. The execution of this was really, really weird because the Vikings' MO was going to be running the football. Run. Now, I think obviously the penalties kind of derailed that because you kept being in second and long or first and long situations. You don't want to be running the football a ton. But Kirk Cousins ends up passing 49 times, but just the way they were drawing up the passes and runs didn't seem cohesive. And I know a lot of our event line audience kind of talked about this as well. It just didn't seem right. You know, John DeFilippo came in and said, I want to pass. And the Vikings were first in pass attempts through a good chunk of 2018. And then they flip it back to Gary Kubiak to become this zone running scheme. It just, the play calling and execution to me just felt off the entire game. And I know there's other circumstances that had to do with that, but 20% of my blame to play calling on Clint Kubiak. My final chunk of pie is it's 3 things into one. It's 3 items into one of this 60%, the last chunk of my pie. It's penalties, discipline, and yourself. So I'm putting all of that into one 60% chunk. You had 15 penalties. You had 3 on the first drive. You had a bunch to close out the first half. Discipline, not having the just fortitude. You're playing in Cincinnati. You're not in the Superdome. You're taking dumb false start penalties. That's just straight up discipline, dude. CJ Ham taking back-to-back penalties, your guards moving irrationally. Like, discipline, man. How hard is it just to stay in motion or to not move and take the snap and be ready to go? And then the last chunk of the pie of yourself. Just, the Vikings did not get beat by Cincinnati necessarily. I know that's what the score says, but this Bengals team is not that good. And you beat yourselves with those penalties, with that discipline, with the play calling, with Bashaud Breeland, with run defense. You sabotaged yourself. And I know the referees maybe played a little bit. I do think the butt was down as well. But regardless, you played yourself. So 60% of that pie into penalties, discipline, and yourself. So my entire pie chart of blame, I should say, in the week 1, 10% to the run defense, 10% to Bashaud Breeland, 20% to play calling, 60% to penalties, discipline, and yourself.
The Rock knows
3:45.
how you feel about pie.
Wow, look at us.
So Mackie wins.
Snappy.
Very nice.
I like it. Look at it. So we were efficient in our criticism. We all kept it under 6 minutes. You notice, so let me do some math here. So 3 pie charts, each of them adding up to 100%. And of the 300% of percentages of blame and pie, right? Only one of us put Kirk Cousins, if I'm not mistaken, in the pie chart. And it was just sliver. It was the kids' table. It was Judd's kids' table. A little 5% sliver of pie.
I'm not letting him off the hook.
Well, but I would love to sort of jump into this. We talked about this a little bit on Mackie and Judd, our other daily show, if you guys want to check that out as well. The reason I didn't put Kirk Cousins in my pie chart of blame is because I don't think he was to blame for the loss yesterday. I don't think he was a primary reason for why they lost. But that, to me, opens up the entire point of the conversation about Kirk Cousins, is that it's not just about blame. You know, like when the Seahawks lose a game, it's very rarely because Russell Wilson shipwrecked them, right? And the Vikings, there's 2 or 3 games where Cousins might shipwreck you. That Falcons game last year, but for the most part, he's shipwreck proof. You're not going to go 3-14 with Kirk Cousins. Maybe 2 or 3 times a year he malfunctions and has a bad game at Chicago or against the Falcons. Right. But my question on the flip side is, how many of the top quarterbacks in the NFL lose that game to the Bengals yesterday? How many teams? The Buccaneers with Tom Brady, the Seahawks with Russell Wilson, the Chiefs with Pat Mahomes.
They don't.
Can you envision them losing that game to the Bengals?
Well,
Well, it
the
wasn't
Chiefs were-
Kirk's fault. Go ahead.
The Chiefs were sunk, right? And the Browns dropped the punt, and the Chiefs were like, okay, cool, bang, they score.
Yep.
Top quarterbacks win that game. Top quarterbacks hit throws on not great days for the offensive line to Justin Jefferson and Thielen that result in first downs, and you continue to go down the field. Top quarterbacks are entrusted to try and make that last drive in which Greg Joseph tied the game with a 53-yard field goal. They're entrusted to take at least one significant deep shot. Kirk was not. There's a lot of factors here, but I would say the fact that you guys both didn't include Kirk is actually a problem, because like you should have the faith to say Kirk either helped you significantly to win that football game or he didn't. Like when you leave Kirk out, that to me is a red flag, because the quarterback should always weigh in on the pie chart in some way, good or bad. And you're basically saying, he wasn't the. That's the problem, is we now like sort of just accept the fact that, well, Kirk might not play a big role, or Kirk, he's your quarterback.
Well, yeah, and so I agree. I went back and forth because, again, I think there's a section for blame, and then there's a section for solutions. And Kirk oftentimes falls right in the middle of those two things. You're paying him, and I see a bunch of people on Vikings Twitter that are putting out, he's not the second highest paid quarterback. He's 8th in terms of contract value. No, we're talking about cap hit,
Right.
Relative to the salary cap, which is the structure by which you build your team. He is the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL this year and next year. But he's nowhere near the second best quarterback. And so it puts you, when the Chiefs have Pat Mahomes at like the 15th or 18th cap hit, but he's the best quarterback in the NFL, it allows them to have a monster roster around him with free agents like Joe Tooney coming in to help the offensive line, and that's why they look so ridiculously good the last 2 or 3 years. But to your point, why are you paying a quarterback top money? Why are you paying Kirk Cousins top money? It's not to avoid blame. His job isn't to avoid blame. His job is to be the solution and the reason for you winning a road game against the Bengals when things are coming down around you, when your offensive line is taking penalties and when your defense is getting gashed a little bit. You're paying more money for that quarterback to fix it in the moment and win games. But he brought them back. Well, I mean, he brought them to the edge of field goal range and they tied the game. And I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying he played like garbage. I'm saying he's very rarely the person that rises up and pulls you out of a mess and brings you to a victory. But he's paid like he should. And that's why he's so I didn't put him in the pie chart because he's not to blame, but he wasn't the main reason for why the Vikings, they didn't win the game. They didn't win the game.
But that to me is the problem, is that he is considered to be just a piece of the team. And when it comes to elite, especially how they're paid quarterbacks, that's nonsense. They are one of the most important pieces, or should be the most important piece of the team across the board. Can you imagine if the Buccaneers had started, and they probably did at times, and Brady got pissed. If the Buccaneers had started the game the way the Vikings did, and the fullback jumps a couple of times, and Brady just being a part of I guess we're not doing so well, he'd go crazy. He'd flip out at people because that's his job.
What are you doing, CJ Ham? He would be in that dude's face. What needs to happen? I'm so glad you brought this up because it's okay, the Vikings, and Kirk was asked about this after the game too. And, why did you guys jump a million times to start the game? Well, it wasn't really any one thing, and he really didn't want to give a reason. Not that he's going to, explain it to the public anyways, if they have a reason. He's going to keep that secretive. But, people just want to blame, well, that's CJ Ham's fault, or that's the offensive lineman's fault. I'm not talking about the holdings. The holdings are different, the holding penalties. I'm talking about the false starts, 3 in the first 5 plays, all right? Those are scripted plays. Mike Zimmer has outsourced offensive planning, all right? So Mike Zimmer is also to blame because he needs to be more hands-on with everything. He's a defensive coordinator playing head coach. So I'm not exonerating Mike. This is ultimately Mike's doing. He has chosen to structure the team in a way that empowers the offensive coordinator and the coach and the quarterback to run the offense. So when you have, in the first 5 plays of your season, when you have 3 false start penalties, that's either a major coaching malfunction, or I'm looking at the guy in terms of who's going to fix this. Why is this happening? The guy in the huddle delivering the play and the snap count to his teammates, and then in charge of delivering the snap count in a loud stadium. Why 3 times in 5 plays is there so much confusion and misunderstanding? Why?
And
well, it's not Kirk's fault. Why not?
And Brady, after his false starts, before the first snap of the season, would go crazy. Like, that wouldn't happen again. That would not. And that's where, like, Kirk can't be, this might not be fair, but I don't care because it's the truth. Kirk can't be a piece of the puzzle. Like, Kirk was like talking about, well, CJ Ham's going to have some great days. No, dude, you're the quarterback. The response is that was unacceptable. That's on me as well, and we're fixing it right now. Not, I'm just a piece of the. It's not fair, but when you're paid like Kirk is, and you are a quarterback in the National Football League, your demeanor, your leadership, those are all very important things. Your box score is only a piece of that equation. And we've somehow gotten into the habit, probably because there have been a lot of bad QBs in this town, but we've somehow got into the habit of saying, well, look at the passing yards, look at the touchdowns, look at this, look at that. That's only a piece of it. And the disappointing thing with fans who feel that way is Brett Favre wasn't that long ago. And remember what Brett Favre did. Now, I know the end was bad, okay? But 2009 was a magical carpet ride, which in some ways showed you this is what a quarterback does. He takes control. He throws guys open. He controls things. And look, Brett was a manipulating SOB at times, but he controlled things. I appreciated that. Kirk just wants to be sort of a piece of the puzzle, and he's paid like a guy who should be the straw that stirs the drink. That's what's frustrating to watch. And that's what people seem to just accept. But let's go down. So let's explore the Brady path on this one too. Because Tom Brady is not the world's greatest guy. And Tom Brady doesn't continually go to his team and redo his contract because Tom Brady's a saint and going to ascend someday to heaven. Tom Brady does it because Tom Brady looks at a guy like Garrett Bradbury and he says, he can't be my center. And by the way, I will not
allow this to continue. He's garbage. Get him out of the starting
lineup. But what does that mean? They say, okay, Tom, where are we going to find the money? And Tom's like, here's what we're going to do. If you don't think Tom Brady controls those contractual moves, you're crazy. He's not a victim. He's like, okay, you sign this. You sign the guy I want. I will give you some of your cash back, and I'll get it back eventually. But the point is, we're just accepting the fact that Garrett Bradbury's back for year 3 of a cluster bleep. Why? Why is the quarterback accepting of that?
Yeah, dude, it's amazing.
Those are the things we're talking about.
I think I feel like outside of Brett Favre in 2009 and then a couple awesome years of Dante, we've been so conditioned to just accept mediocrity, not just at quarterback, but in other places too. It's like, well, they were, a fringe top 10 scoring offense last year. That's pretty good. Do you want them to win a Super Bowl? 11th isn't good enough in points. My expectations for a quarterback go beyond the yardage and the touchdowns that he puts up. When I see 3 false start penalties in the first 5 plays, the first thing I think is, wow, this is a chaotic mess. Who is the leader in charge of making sure this isn't a chaotic mess? Well, Mike Zimmer is the ultimate leader. But in that huddle and at that line of scrimmage, Mike Zimmer's not out there. Clint Kubiak's not out there. The quarterback's out there. Have you ever seen a Russell Wilson or Tom Brady offense or Pat Mahomes offense in the first 5 plays of a game be that chaotically unorganized and confused? Why are they unorganized and confused? Well, they're just idiots. No, that's not true either. It's like, add it up. Add it up. Why did Kyle Rudolph write a 2,000-word goodbye to the Vikings organization, name 50 people, including ball boys, and not mention Kirk Cousins? Why do you think that is?
Thanks to Spurgeon.
Why do you think that is?
No, I know, but people don't want to look at that. They don't want to see that. They don't want to see the truth, which is Kirk Cousins is paid an immense amount to do an immense amount of work. And nobody's saying, that's the one thing I'm trying to stress too, okay? When it comes to play calling or when it comes to playing QB, nobody's saying it's easy, but when you take the job, when you get the job, you're expected to produce. So the whole thing, well, Clint Kubiak's going to learn and it's really not Clint's fault and how can you blame him? He's not playing. there were things, as Dex pointed out yesterday, that were very concerning about play calling. And there is no time for, 5 games in, it's going to be different. You had a win yesterday. Like that was a silver platter game. I brought you the butter knife steak, damn it, and said, take this win. And you're like, I don't think I do. No, thank you.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
That was good. That felt good, though.
Should pay the audience for being our therapist listening to
felt
this
good.
right now.
Yeah.
That felt good. I feel like we talked through some stuff that we needed to.
Well, the other thing we do after the Vikings lose, silver linings. Let's each throw out a silver lining from that game yesterday. I'll start. I gave you my silver lining a couple times, I think, on Twitter and Mackie and Judd. Is Greg Joseph.
Big field goal.
Is one of the great kickers in Vikings history from what I saw yesterday. That was a 53-yard, stone-cold, absolute clutch kick that is very, very rare, I feel like, in Vikings history. I know it was a week 1 game against the Bengals. It doesn't rise up to like a playoff game, but, dude, that was money. That was 53 yards with the buzzer sounding like right down the nuts, and Greg Joseph deserves to be celebrated to some extent for extending that game.
He was stoic, too.
Dude,
like, it didn't look like, oh, my God, I made the... He was just like, yeah, cool.
Yep.
Did it.
That
I
was
did
great.
my job.
It was way beyond what I would have expected. And I think what most fans, whatever the Vikings kicker lines up for a big kick, you're just like, oh, God. But, it's too bad he didn't get a shot to win it in overtime because it's too bad. Quite frankly, it's too bad that the video replay system is so archaic still that they have to rely on what was the call on the field. Who cares what the call was on the field? What did you see on the replay? His butt was down. So my silver lining is Greg Joseph.
I like it.
My silver lining is you have a new week to play a football game. You can just take what happened on Sunday and say goodbye and plan for Arizona. And I know Arizona might be a tough game. You're 4-point underdogs. They walloped in their win as well. But it's a new week. My silver lining is it's a new week for the Vikings. Let's forget about what happened on Sunday and move on. That is my silver lining.
Yeah, Chandler Jones, that's going to be fun.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Rashad Hill.
God,
Yes.
dude.
That's 5 sacks.
Dude.
5 sacks against a good left tackle yesterday.
And Kyler Murray, one of the great eluding quarterbacks.
I
in
do
the
like to
NFL
watch
right
him,
now.
though. I do enjoy his game.
Yeah.
All right, mine is this. Number 3 wide receiver yesterday, not D.D. Westbrook, KJ Osborne. I told you guys he looked great in training camp.
Yeah.
7 receptions, 76 yards, 9 targets. He continues to look like a different player. And I'm glad that, so he's not, I don't think, a great return guy. Like, I don't think that's his skill set. They tried him there, and it really didn't go that well. But I also think he's probably a far better wide receiver than we all thought. He looked really good. And he gives them the ability now, especially with Irv Smith out, to go 3, if not 4 wide. And at some point, if they start to take advantage of that, that might be nice. But if you have 3 receiver sets that include Thielen, Jefferson, and Osborne, at some point, I would think it's going to make Jefferson more dangerous. And the fact that Jefferson had, 5 catches for 71 yards is ridiculous. So Osborne's emergence, I think, in this offense is going to be a huge plus if it's utilized correctly.
Mm-hmm. So those are your silver linings after Vikings loss in week 1 to the Cincinnati Bengals. I saw, by the way, Riley Reef for the Bengals had 33 pass blocking plays yesterday and did not allow a pressure.
Oh,
but
nice.
hey, Dalvin Tomlinson was in there stopping the run.
That was a lot of Danielle Hunter, right?
I think it
Against
was.
him.
Yeah, and
It was a lot
well,
of
Hunter
Danielle
had 1 sack, so that
Yes.
must have been
From the other side.
because they had some weird formations where they had Tomlinson and Pierce both lined up on the same side, and then
Yep.
they would have like Wanham, and so they were definitely mixing and matching looks and formations and whatnot. All right. Also on Mondays, Judd Surly, You Must Be Furious, presented
Yeah,
by
but-
Surly Brewing Company.
Sponsored by our friends. And I want to get to, so before I get to my rant, I do want to say on Saturday at the Gopher football game in the suite, Dex and I are there, and I walked in, I saw Dex there, but I didn't look at Dex first. I looked at the fact that there were 6 cold Surleys. 6 cold Surleys on ice.
I'm envisioning Judd running through a field of just this happy smile.
Most
The
people
big
look past
surly
me,
can
too.
is
Yeah.
running back.
I was
terms of
like,
booze,
oh,
yeah.
hi, Declan. There's my babies. 6 Surly Furiouses, all delicious. And you
Judd's
know what?
going in for the hug. Declan opens his arms up too.
Yeah,
Judd
nope.
walks
And
right
then I
by
get-
and hugs
and then
the
I get a
surly
farm.
bucket.
Yeah,
And then I
just-
get 6 Surleys and ice and just like, oh, Declan, I'm sorry. This is my true love. And so it was a great time. And the nice thing was, on that day, Surly Furious, a beer of celebration. Now, yesterday, probably not so much because of what transpired. And yes, that gets me to my Surly, you must be furious. And it's this, a reminder. I don't want to hear your damn excuses today. I don't want to hear the reasons why. I don't want to hear about, oh, they rallied. I've gotten that one on Twitter. What about the rally? Cousins' statistics were great. How about the special teams, Judd? This was an inexcusable performance, and the fact that the Packers got waxed is even more frustrating. It doesn't make me more happy. Let's stop celebrating the failures in Wisconsin and focus on what the Vikings need to do to get their act together, because the Vikings are in first place because of point differential instead of because they are 1-0, which they should be, and everybody else is 0-1. This was a winnable game on the road. This was a chance to make a season opening statement after you got waxed by the Packers at home last year in game 1. And instead, the offense was a penalty machine. The defense gave up 149 yards rushing. And quite frankly, my hashtag faith has run out at this point. I'm furious about what we saw. Thanks to the folks from Surly for sponsoring that rant.
One of the great therapy sessions here, boys. I feel like I don't know. I'm ready for week 2 now. I'm ready to cleanse the palate.
I'm
Ready
going to
for
turn the
week 2
page.
now.
I'm with you on that.
I mean, there's definitely still some things I'm going to complain about tomorrow because there's more left. But bring on the Cardinals, baby. Let's get back
Right.
to let's see if the Vikings can maintain their hold on first place in the NFC North after week 2. That's all I'm concerned about. If this thing turns into the NFC East from last year, if 7 wins is it, let's go. Let's get those
Dumb
7
question.
wins, baby.
Is this a first for this team to be 0-1 and in first place?
Yes, I believe it's the first
Like,
time
has
this
the division
ever happened.
opened up? Okay.
No,
I was going to say.
I don't think this has happened before.
1961, and this is the first time you're in first place at 0-1
Yeah.
because of point differential. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. Also, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, helping to provide protection more so than we saw with the starting center, for instance, the Vikings yesterday. But they'll provide protection for your business and your employees, risk management tools and resources. Protect your bottom line by protecting your company, and find out more at federatedinsurance.com. Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right. I was going to say any final thoughts, but I just feel like it's going to launch us into another 10-minute rant. Plenty more. I know you guys are going to do respond to some comments on a bonus episode later today, and then we'll have a couple episodes tomorrow, the regular scheduled episode, and then Purple After Dark with our friend Realistic Randy, who I'm guessing has takes on this game as well. So, all right, thanks for hanging out with us. This is Purple Daily, presented by Surly. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl. Just take a step forward, please.